It's okay. This one's
yeah. So Jabber is the. I'll just write the Etherpad.
Brexit issues are on the issue on agenda.
Yeah, we're going to have an indicative vote.
Yes.
Timing. That's also something I'll take care of.
she's already.
Blue sheets are ordered. Let me go do that, and I think you can start.
Is that the expectation too high?
So that side of the building is for the IESG. You can stretch out on the seats and sleep. So you need to throw Gert out then.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. This is the PCE session. Okay, let's start, but the usual not well. Remember that the IETF has IPR rules. Please abide by them. Forget that anything you say right here is recorded and involves is seen as a contribution from the IETF perspective. So this one, yeah. The blue sheets should be going through, so you know the process. We are 3 of them here, so we'll try to have a look at Jabber and Metica for remote participant and questions. We also have 2 remote presentations, so we hope everything will work as expected. If you come to the mic or to the presenter mic, please make sure to use it correctly. And we have a pink cross over here, down. Make sure that you remain on the cross when you present for the video to be recorded properly. So, as you noticed, you're already aware that John stepped down from his chair position. So this is the opportunity for me to thank him again. I wasn't there last time, but I already told him directly. We hope to see him again in the IETF, maybe not on a as regular basis as before. We have now 2 rookies who just joined me. The first one on my right is Drev. I think that if you don't own a newcomer tag on your badge, you certainly know Drev already. So no need to introduce him a lot. The second one is Adrian. Believe me, it's quite fun to name a rookie, someone who's been the mentor for many of us. Adrian has accepted to serve as a third chair in a temporary manner to help to solve two topics. One of them is the transitioning for Drev, who is involved or used to be involved on many documents in the group. So to ease this transitioning in a step-by-step basis, Adrian will be there to act and ensure that the load is properly balanced before he leaves for Drev. Second goal, help flushing some of the queues we have for the PCE document. So we hope that this will progress quite efficiently. The intent is to see Adrian stepping down from his position before the next IETF meeting in Montreal. As you may be aware, there is a lesion which has been responded by the IETF quite recently. It involves several working groups from the routing area in the IETF. It was a response to IETF communication, which came a while ago. We roughly just include some of the recent PC document there to make sure the IETF is aware of the work we progress. A short reminder on using the mailing list. We had again this time multiple drafts that came out without any discussion on the list, just sometimes on not each time announcements on the mailing list. Please remember that our first tool to progress the work is the mailing list. Don't wait for a meeting to discuss draft issues. Try to send message as much as possible on the list. Among the new things, we've got the wiki, so I can grant my two co-chairs for that too. One of them suggested, the other one make it real. So there is a wiki page that has been, which was there, is been greatly improved to include all the queues and all the documents we manage. The good thing is that anyone can update it. So if you have a document that reach a significant milestone, pass something, and that the chair are late in updating the wiki, you might do it yourself. So try to make the best use of it. I think we have a good tool to start with on this wiki. You may be aware also that in the routing area, there is an implementation policy discussion. We have to decide how we will manage that for the PC working group. We'll certainly start a discussion on implementation policy over the mailing list or in the coming weeks. So we have to talk all together and decide what would be the reasonable way to run an implementation policy for the PC working group. The agenda, anyone wants to bash something? Lou standing over there, but nothing to do, okay. Let's start.
Oh, sorry, that's okay. No problem. So let me talk a little bit of the status of all our documents. So these are the documents that are beyond the working group. We have no new RFCs since Bangkok, but nothing to despair. You can see there is a lot coming your way. We have two documents which are in RFC editor queue. Both are pending a misref. One from a document from Spring and another document from PC itself, which is the GMPLS. And that's the next document in the drafts with the ISG, which is on the telechat next week, which is the GMPLS PCEP extension. So happy to see finally this going through. Apart from that, we shipped various documents to ISG in the past months. They said there is stateful P2MP, hierarchy, extension, applicability of PC in ACTN, a very important document, association group, which is being used, and there are a bunch of other documents which are built up on the generic association group. And yesterday, with the help of John, we also shipped the inter-area AS applicability document. So a bunch of documents have been sent to the ISG. So also request authors to, when the document goes to the ISG, please be responsive when the comments are posted, and let's try and resolve those comments from the directorate as well as from our ADs quickly. These are the early code point allocations which have been done in the past. Luckily, all these documents have been sent to the ISG, so there is nothing to worry, and most of the things will be taken care automatically. This errata that you see is been pending from the last IETF meeting, but finally we closed it. It was raised technical, but after discussion, we decided it's actually an editorial, and we fixed the RBNF issues, and this errata is now closed and verified. Now, moving to working group documents, which are near last call. We have one document which is waiting Shepherd report. This is the auto bandwidth document. We had a change in the personnel for Shepherd. That's the reason for this to be pending, but we plan to act on it pretty soon. There is an ongoing last call for stateful HPC, which will end next week. So this is also an opportunity that if you care about this, please respond. We have not seen much response for this on the list yet, so please do that. And this will also help us, chairs, to make sure that, yes, there is enough consensus in moving this work forward. What you see is at the bottom is the working group last call queue. So this is the queue in which we will start progressing the next set of documents. 2 of them are related to association, protection, and diversity, and one is a simple stateful extension which allows PC to take control over a LSP. So these has been discussed in the past extensively, and they are almost ready. So this is the queue for your information, and you can find all that information in Wiki as well. So please keep checking to know how your work is progressing. Okay, so these are our rest of our working group documents. This time we asked everyone to update the status in the wiki. Mostly I made the update, and I think everybody was happy with that update because nobody came and shouted at me. So this is what I have put on the slides as well. If you disagree, you still have an opportunity to come up to the mic and correct the status. So we have an association policy document. There is no update, and there is no pending actions from the authors as well. There was an update made for PCEP flow spec based on the between the last meeting and now. The main thing that we would require here is we need to gather more implementation experience for this document. So if you have or if you are planning to implement this, please reach out to chairs, provide some information on the implementation part. This is a very important piece of work, so we would like a little implementation feedback as well. Next document, which is the PCEP Yang. We send this document for early Yang Doctor review. Mahesh provided those reviews. During the week, I posted the updated version. I'm still the editor for this document. And still back and forth, you would have seen their messages going. I plan to resolve this quickly. But this document imports a lot of other documents which are still not RFC. So anyway, we would have to wait for those documents to progress before we can take PCEP Yang to RFC publication. Final, we have bidirectional. This document was also updated based on the comments that were received on the mailing list, basically mainly from Marina. And this document is also progressing quite well. Next, we have set of documents which are on the agenda today. The one that I wanted to highlight was the stateful GMPLS. We made a request to the authors of stateful GMPLS and remote initiated GMPLS if these 2 documents can be merged. And luckily, we reached a conclusion, and that will be presented as well in the meeting. So I will skip that for now. And other documents, the 3 that you see on the top, they are all on the agenda. So let's skip them. And then we have documents which are not on the agenda, which is PC LSP scheduling. Again, this document is progressing well, but needs a little bit more implementation feedback. So please provide that. We have 2 recent documents that we adopted since the last meeting. One is the PC FlexGrid, and all the comments that were received during the adoption call, those have also been handled. So that's very good to see that the document already has a 0.1 version which handles those comments. And we have SRv6 document that we adopted. We are still awaiting a 0.1 version that handles the comments that were raised during the adoption call. This is the poll queue, adoption poll queue, that the chairs believe that based on the last couple of meetings that there is enough information to us that we can start the adoption poll. So we have the VN Association, PCCC SR, and the binding SID, which is in your adoption poll queue. So please look out for these documents. This is also a good, don't wait for adoption poll. If you have comments on these documents, reach out now, let's fix them and resolve them quickly. And that will be the status. So if somebody has a disagreement on any of the working group status or want to add some information, this is your time. Going once, going twice, and thank you. So, what am I doing wrong? Yeah. Escape doesn't work.
While we try to run the slides. I think, Young, you're the first presenter.
How do I come out of this?
Full screen here.
F5. Got
Good morning, everyone. I'm Young.
Yeah.
I think as Drew explained, this one is actually a merger of two drafts. PCE, PSAP, stateful PCE GMPLS, extend RFC 8231. Adrian, don't worry, it's not laser beam. And this draft is basically extension to cover stateful PC for GMPLS. And there was another RFC 8281, which is called PCE initiated LSP setup in a stateful PCE. This one is basically PCC delegation control of locally configured LSP to PCE. And this draft is extension for GMPLS. And I think this draft is quite mature, and likewise this one, but I think working group chairs felt this might just merge together for the benefit of reducing the process overhead and so on. So we basically merged the second draft into the first one because first one covers a bit bigger scope. And we published the published version and ready for working group last call. I think Drew is the document shepherd, right? And I believe I reflected your comments on the first one before merger. And after merger, you have some comment to make it smooth, as if your suggestion was to smooth it out so that it's one document rather than merger of two documents.
Let me just clarify.
Yeah.
This is Dhruv. Merge is done. We now just need to make sure that the document feel as it's a one document and not a disjoint two documents, which are just put in one place. So just the editorial pass. And moment you do that, since this document was already in the working group last queue, it will go back into that queue, and we can even get it a little bit more higher preference than the other documents that were added later. One thing that I would also suggest is that the normal GMPLS PSAP extension is also in the ISG. So please look out for any comments that we receive there and align this work with it. So just also keep looking for this thing in the next week.
That's right.
So once you finish that, I think it's back on the queue.
Okay, thanks.
As I don't see any question from the room, we move to the next presentation by Hamian.
Okay, this is Hamian speaking, and I'm going to present this work as an extension to the PCE communication protocol for enhanced error and notification. So this is a very old work. So let me go through something background because this work has not been presented in recent, I think, 5 or 6 years. So we need to emphasize again that we need this work because this is motivated by that we should address the error code handling issues between the PCEs. Originally, in the 5040, actually there is error code definition and handling processes in between the PCE and PCCs. But this one is a kind of more inter-PCE needed, and we also try to review all the error code has been defined so far in the working group, and we also define how to process between the PCEs. So we assume that every draft who has been working on the multiple PCE scenarios including it can be multi-layer or multi-domain or hierarchical, whatever. So we need to specify, okay, whether we should handle the errors in this way. And this work was studied in 2010 and adopted in 2012. So some of the authors I don't know, but it is now reactive. We still alive again, and but currently I feel that there are quite not many attentions, but we believe this one is still necessary. So I'm presenting here to draw your attentions to take a look at this one. So what's in the draft? Actually, we have specified two different sections. One is for error handling and the other for the notification. So error handling we have two separate objects, and we will decide whether we propagate this kind of error, yes or no, and what is the criticality level of this kind of error. It can be low, middle, or high. So we will categorize the existing error code into all the combination of the propagate categories and the criticality level classes. For the notification part, it would be a little bit simpler, and it only need to notify whether it is a local or it's a kind of a request specific. So here we provide very detailed handling rule, how to allocate the propagation value and the criticality level for each given PC error code.
A clarification question. What do you mean by on demand here?
On demand is a kind of we have not specified anything. For example, if the class 11, the critically is recommended to be low, but the propagation you can decide whether you want or you don't want. Yes.
Basically, you want unspecified as the right word. Like we are not giving a specification. You can put 0 or 1 based on your requirement.
Right.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So actually, this is not exclusive anything, because some of them have multiple values depending on the urgency or some kind of that. And another motivation we had to present here is because we have some quick check on the existing draft, and this will definitely impact other kind of works. And we assume most of the works will be good, and some of the inter-PC we assume that we need this kind of error handling, but we currently don't have it so far. So this is some potential comments that can be. But I just find an issue here. Actually, I wasn't aware. The first one is an informational one. So the objective is to have every multiple PCE related drafting standard track to have this kind of description section indicating whether the new error types would be needed and how the propagation type and the criticality level would be encoded.
Are you expecting that the authors of drafts will do this? In which case you may be ambitious, or will you talk to the authors of the drafts and help them by suggesting text?
Yeah, we can do that offline, and I can come to those authors. But I believe this part should be in the separate in their corresponding draft, not in the presented draft. So we're looking forward to see some discussions on whether this is a kind of agreement we can reach in the working group to do the error handling sessions in corresponding drafts. It's certainly an important work, but we have too many important works, so it may not be an urgent one. I agree. But I'm just wondering, want to understand from the working group whether this kind of inter-PCE publication may have this kind of dependency on this work. If yes, we may become more urgent than before. And we are also discussing how to close this work, because everything current so far is stable. And we here request for the working group to have some attention, have some review, and we are preparing for the last call of this work. So that's all for presentation. Comments, please.
Any questions? While we are waiting for someone to stand, I second what Adrian is saying. I suggested that earlier as well, that let's just provide text on the mailing list to these authors that I would like you to add this section, and this is the text. And if they disagree, then we really are seeing that your work users, the people that you are writing this document for, if they are not convinced that this is needed, then yeah, I think our work is not going to be that successful. But we know that there are a lot of documents. HPC is there. We have one document today on the agenda as well. So maybe we can use this time also to talk to them and see if the error codes that are being defined there are the mechanism, what is the criticality level, and this can also be specified now, at least in all the new documents that are coming through. And we have our AD.
Yes, Deborah, I would like to suggest, since you have now a wiki page, possibly you could put some author guidelines there, and this would be very useful. Security considerations would be useful. That would really be helpful.
So let me try to confirm whether the last item here can be consensus in the working group, saying that we only focus on those kind of multiple PCE-related drafting standard track. So I don't think we needed to specify too much on informational or single PCE ones.
I think you're right about not needing to do too much, but I don't think that's nothing. So the comparison I would make is with security considerations.
Okay.
An informational document is not going to need to do protocol specification for security, but it probably points out security issues. And I think the same thing here. So an informational multi-PCE thing might just have one line that says this is multi-PCE, so it should also consider.
Okay. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're moving to the native IP presentation by John.
Yeah. Hello, here I just to give some description for the updation for the PCAP extension for the native IP. So here I just what's the proposal for the PCAP extension. We just want to use PCE to assist our traffic engineer in our native IP network. So here we propose to use in PCAP for do three things. First is the BOD and BGP pair dynamically and rapidly. The second is popular different prefix between them. The third is manipulate the path to the BGP link top on demand based on the zero network consideration. This is the main aim for the released protocol, the released draft. And in previous document, we just proposed three PCAP object which is carried in the PCE initial LSP request. The following is the three detail project. But after we discuss with our draft, here list the PCB extension for PCE controller, proposed the PCE CC architecture for the instruction controller instruction download. So we think the PCE native IP network has also some flavor of the PCE CC character. So we after discuss with we drove with other author of the draft, we decided to take a similar procedure to put down this key object. So here we just propose define one new CCI object type and put key information into a newly defined CCI object as a sub-TLV. So main content of the TLV not changed. Here is the key field. The first is the pair. We will download the peer IDs and IP address. The second is the prefix association PPA. We'll download the peer ID and associated prefix. The third is for EPR for the manipulate the path to the next hop to the BGP peer. So here we just look for some comment or suggestion for the newly proposed TLV, especially from the implementation viewpoint. We also considering the future coordination between the command from the traditional network VM or CLI and the dynamic PSAP protocol. So that's all for the updation.
Any comment? Question?
Thanks, Adrian. Has this been circulated to the IDR working group? Not for them to work on, but so that they know we're doing it?
I just send the related person for review this related document.
Okay. Okay.
And also discuss with them offline for the overall solution.
So maybe just have in the back of your head periodically just to send them an email to their mailing list, just to say, don't forget we're doing this work.
Okay.
Because we clearly it's related to how BGP works.
Okay.
Yeah, and we need them to be aware.
Okay.
I had one more comment. I was just going through and I realized that in the TEAS working group, all the related documents are experimental, but in the PCE, we are aiming for this in standard track. So is that the plan, or is it just a mistake in the picking the track?
Planner.
But I think then we need to talk to TEAS chairs as well, that there the work is going experimental. Ideally, I think we have Pawan there as well. So do you have any concerns?
No, the two documents that we have, both are on experimental track. There's no plan to move it out of experimental anytime. So unless there is some feedback received, we don't see it getting out of experimental anytime soon.
So can I put you on the spot as to why that's experimental?
There were a few reasons. Before adoption, there wasn't much support for the document, but there was some interest from a few people to see where this work goes. So given the lack of interest, and we decided that was the best way to take it forward.
Can category be changed later if we find?
Yeah, and everything can change, right until, or possibly even after the last minute. Yeah.
So I don't see why this needs to be standard track until the prof.
Yeah, I would also prefer if this remains experimental, but I think it's up to the working group as well. So I think we can take that discussion to the list as well, that what should be the ideal track for this work. Another suggestion would be, and first of all, I would like to thank you for my personal comment that I gave, that if instead of introducing new objects, if you could put it within the PCCC architecture, which you kind of agreed, so which actually makes the document also much easier to follow. The second comment that I would have is, without my chair hat on, first time I said it, that we need some more description. In this sense, you have three different parameters. One is to create a dynamic BGP session, another to put prefix, which are, in my point of view, aiming towards the endpoints. But then you also have one more TLV, which might be needed on all the nodes in between. So that clarity is not there in the document right now. We have just defined the TLVs, but we need to go a step further and explain the procedures and the interaction between PSEP and BGP, if there is any. And error codes, all those things. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in clarifying itself, that how this is actually used beyond what is the messages and what is the object. Thank you.
Yeah, Deborah speaking as AD. Yeah, experimental, just to clarify what Adrian said, it's simply that you can go through and publish it as experimental and then come back 3 months later, 5 years later, and take it standards track once it has some maturity. Just so don't worry that it's experimental, but what needs to be shown is interest, maturity, implementations, that it can be stable.
So I've got a little more on this. The TEAS documents are more in the position of being framework and use cases. So there, I think the choice was experimental or informational. Here, it's protocol, so the choice is more experimental or standards track. I think this whole question is going to come back to what the working group thinks about implementation status before we move forward. But ultimately, we don't have to make this decision until we make a publication request. So when we go to the AD and say, can we have an RFC, then we need to make a proper decision. Now it's just a flag.
Thank you.
And now cross your finger. We're moving to a remote presentation. The one on PC central controller. This one? Yeah.
We have Mahindra. Mahindra, can you say something?
Yeah, I could see. You could hear me, Dhruv?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, well, good, yeah. Well, morning, everyone. This is Mahendra Negi from India. I just have an update on PCCC extensions, these two IDs. Quickly go through that. Can we move to next slide?
I think I'm on slide 2.
Yeah. So just about background, PC as a central controller, the main RFC, the architecture RFC is already published, and we have basic PCCC draft recently adopted by PCWG, and the PCCC SR draft specific to segment routing extensions for PCEP. It is in adoption queue. To next slide, Dhruv, please. Yeah, a major update on these two IDs are supporting binding SID allocation by PCE, and we are reusing T path binding TLB, which is already there in use, and PCC is PCE request PCC to allocate binding level using this T path binding TLB. So we are still using the same TLB in which PCC requests PCE to allocate label by PC request message, or PCE itself can allocate label and binding label and push to PCC. So this we are reusing. The another one is PCC allocation, the label allocation by PCC on PCECC's request. So this one we'll see a bit in detail. The first part we are just reusing. The another part we will see in with detail. Next one, please.
Slide transition takes a while. Are you seeing the new slide?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In this case, PCE requests PCC to allocate label instead of having explicit, control over PCC's label range or label block. So this we feel could be
good, he's disabled the video. So disable the video and continue. Oh, I think he's dropped off. Okay, so in the save you time, let me take over and present the rest of this without taking too much time. So this is Dhruv, without the chair hat, without the author hat, just a contributor to this document. And so as Mahindra was saying, that we have a C flag. This flag basically says, I'm not going to allocate the label, but I would like the PCC to do the allocation on behalf of me. And to do that, I set the flag, don't put the label value, send the message to the node, and node allocates the label and send it back to me. So how does this work? The PCCC goes to the egress, says, can you allocate a label for me? But this is my instruction. The egress allocates a label and report it back to the PCCC. Now at the transit, you have two instructions. One where you are specifying a particular label, which is the green, which is the out label. And on the in label side, you request the node to make the allocation. And the node makes a new allocation, which is the label yellow, and kind of report it back to the PCCC. And same thing happens at the ingress as well. So in this way, you basically have the label allocation going from egress, transit, ingress in a sequential manner. This is different from the case that we had earlier in the draft, where all the label management was done by PCCC itself. So the things can be done in a more parallel fashion. In this case, labels are coming from the node, so you have to do it in the sequential fashion from the back to the front. The main reason why we added that, in some cases, it was difficult for us to know the delegation of a label space at the PCE for some reason, because the node may not be in directly your control. It could be a border router. It could be various different things. So we wanted to allow PCCC to also just tell, I would like you to execute this instruction, but I'm not specifying what label to use. You pick a label from your space and report it back to me. That's the small change that the authors have done in this latest update. So the question, I think the yeah, Mahendra, do you want to close?
Yeah. Almost you finished it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Authors, expect comments on the recent updates and feedback from other implementers. And we request the adoption call for PCCC SR draft soon. So any question on this particular update, please?
There is at least one in the room.
Yes, hi, my name is Tarek from Juniper. In the case where you're mixing the allocation mode from PCECC and distributed on the device, there could be cases where you have collision. Are you thinking of carving the label space, something managed by the controller, something managed by the device? Is that the recommendation? Okay, thanks.
Mahindra, you can answer, but I kind of shake my head, which I'm an Indian after all, so we communicate by head movements.
Yes, you're right.
Any other comments or question? If not, we'll move to the next presentation. Thank you. The next one is Ajun again.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hello. Here, I just make the petition for the PC control IT space as a co-author. The motivation for this draft is, the PCP extension for PC controller specifies the procedure and PCAP protocol extension for the PCE as a central controller. So where label can be distributed down to the device through the extended PCAP. And there are another draft related for the SR deployment also specify the procedure for the PCAP extension for to download the SR label. However, this document assumes the label range to be used by PCE in non and set on both PCAP peers. But this assumption is should have some mechanism to support it. There are other situations. For example, the binding seed allocation and the pass ID seed allocation all need the PC controller now the ID space previously. So in order to allocate the ID directly from the PC, the underlying PCC should advertise the PC control ID space to the PCs. This is the main motivation for the draft. This is here is the message flow for this draft. So for dedicating the controller controlled IT space, the related ID space TLV must be included in open message, and for each TLV type, it should be included once in open message. Currently, we consider mainly the two kind TLV. For the first is the label control space TLV. The second is the SIV6 function ID control space TLV. This is the format of the controller label control space TLV. It is just describe the block as the start value and the range. So after knowing this controller space, the PC can assign the label such as the binding seed and pass seed from this space. The second is SIV6 function ID control ID space. It has a similar structure with former TLV. Here we define the one additional thing. We define the yellow flag to indicate the locator is exist or not. So if this TLV flag is set, then the locator TLV are associated with locator field are associated are included in this TLV. If it's not set, then it will not included in the TLV. Here we just give this in the cap data. We just eliminate the A flag that defined in the previous draft. The main aim of the A flag is just want to indicate that the PC want to dedicate all space to the PC, but after discussing this, such scenario is not very common. So it is very commonly the PC need to define the label range to the PC. So it is not necessary for this flag. And the second is we add a new culture from the Cisco and with other small needs. So next plan, we believe this is missing function in current PC and PCC and SR related draft. So can make sense and quite useful for the related work. So we are asking for a comment and question and for the working group adoption.
Any comment from the room? I have one question related to the previous one on your other document. Currently, the ID is flagged as experimental. Can you confirm this is on purpose?
Sorry?
The ID document is experimental on the header.
Instead of standards track, this document is currently under experimental. So Julian is asking, what is the reason? Is that a thought behind making this document an experimental? Okay, a co-author is coming. Thanks.
Cheng Li from Huawei as a co-author. First of all, we choose the type of experimental because we think it's not so easy for stand track. But if you want, we can go for stand track. That would be better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the honest answer. Any other comment? Okay, so let's move on. Thank you. The following one is Mike. Remotely again. So we hope it will work better.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So, yes, I'll be presenting this draft PSEP extensions to support segment routing policy candidate paths. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Okay, you don't care for history.
So there's been 3 versions of this draft. Oh, sorry, previous slide.
Yeah. There's a little bit of lag between the slide change. So right now you are on history of the draft.
Right, yep. So there's been 3 publications in this draft. First, we introduced the overall structure of tying the PSEP LSPs into an association group to represent the SR policy. In the second publication, we defined the 3 TLVs that signal the different policy attributes, and in the third publication, we just did some clarifications. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this draft is there was recently introduced this concept of segment routing policy, which adds extra structure to segment routing. It basically unifies kind of different candidate paths into a single SR policy, and it adds the concept of color and other things. And so PSEP was lacking a way to signal this information. So our current draft is meant to address this gap in PSEP by allowing both the PCE and the PCC to signal these extra pieces of information that were introduced in the segment routing policy draft. Next slide, please. So basically, this is just like an overview of the draft. So we define a PSEP LSP to correspond to a segment routing candidate path, and the group of PSEP LSPs is tied into an association group, and that represents the SR policy. And the SR segment list corresponds to the PSEP ERO. And we define the TOVs to signal these various values. Next slide, please. So this is the TOV that gives the ID of the policy within the context of the head end. So basically, all the PSEP LSPs that are within the same SR policy must have the same value of this TOV. And correspondingly, all PSEP LSPs that are not within the same SR policy must have different values of this TOV. Thanks. And this is the candidate path TOV, candidate path identifier TOV. So basically, it must be different among different candidate paths in the same SR policy. Excuse me. So this encodes stuff like the protocol origin and the originator. In the case that the PCC may want to report non-PSEP candidate paths to the PCE. For example, if you have a configured candidate path, the PCC can report that configured candidate path to the PCE and specify the protocol origin as configuration. And similarly, if you have a BGP TE instantiated candidate path on the PCC, then the PCC can report that to the PCE and set the protocol origin to be BGP. Okay, next slide, please. And this is just the attributes of the candidate path that do not serve as the key. And I believe they can theoretically be even modified during the lifetime of the PSEP LSP. But the previous other TOVs must not be modified during the lifetime of the LSP. Next slide, please. So next step is we plan to initiate work group adoption, and that's it. That's it for the presentation. Time for questions.
Question coming. Just interrupt. So number of comments. You've been using the policy term and LSP term interchangeably. I think you should put in kind of big letters that one means another in context of PSEP.
I mean, no, I mean, policy, SR policy is a group of PSEP LSPs. That's how, so SR policy equals PSEP association. That's what, like this, if you go to the overview slide.
The number of places where you use specifically SR LSP term. So.
SR LSP?
Yes.
Is that like in the actual text of the draft?
Let me get my glass. Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah, well, I think if that is the case, we will correct that. It should be PSEP LSP, not SR LSP.
Any thinking about using binding seats in case where you cannot instantiate LSP/policy/ end-to-end?
Binding SID should work as before. Like there's no, we do not kind of add any new process for the binding SID. So binding SID still belongs to the PSEP LSP, which for us is a candidate path. So basically, it's the same.
No, but your endpoint, the tool endpoint might not be the same as endpoint where binding seat would be expanded to reach. Again, if you cannot push enough labels to instantiate full policy.
Sorry, could you clarify the question? I didn't think I understood the question.
So you'll be using MSD as one of the constraints to compute the path, right? If you cannot push enough labels, then you shouldn't be doing it. And you'll know your MSD at time of computation.
Right.
So you might decide to use binding seed instead in order to segment the tunnel.
Okay, right.
Let me just interject. This is Dhruv. I think what's happening is that all you're saying is valid, but it might be there in the normal SR document itself, because this document is not talking about how to compute the candidate path and what computation to consider. It is talking about when you have multiple candidate path, how to group them into an SR policy using an association object.
I understand. However, yes, low level, when you implement it, it should interwork.
Yeah,
that's
it
my
should.
point.
I think you're putting a right word that yes, it should interwork. In fact, I wanted to also ask the room that one thing that the document currently says also is that they assume that within a candidate path, they have only one SID list. And but the SR policy allows a candidate path to have multiple SID lists. So there is still a lot of work to be done in this space. So
Okay,
this is
then
just
we
the
are in
starting
agreement.
point.
Thank you. Thank you. The next in the queue.
Can I just have one more point? I also wanted to use this opportunity to, talk to all the authors working on SR document, especially make sure that there is some alignment between BGP work and the PSEP work. Recently, we had come in from Tariq, and earlier also, while we were progressing SR document, there were some issues between some flags are different between the two documents, and we share the authors between the BGP and PSEP. So we request, especially those authors who are involved in both documents, to please help in making sure the alignment is there. Thank you.
Yeah. I think the next one is Mahendra on the remote queue.
Yeah.
You have the floor.
My question is related to candidate paths. Now, can PCC initiated and PCC initiated candidate paths can coexist in this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay,
basically,
that's
the protocol origin can be set to PSEP. If we go back a couple of slides. If we go back a couple of slides, please.
We are running out of time, so I
okay,
think
sure.
You have clarified the question. I think we can move on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the next presentation then, which is Cheng.
Hello, everyone. Yep, I'm Cheng Li from Huawei, and my topic today is about SR POS segment and bidirectional POS in PSEP. And I won't repeat the whole details of the draft. I assume that you have read the drafts already, since I have presented this for several times. So let me repeat the motivation why we do this. First of all, in SR networks, use cases like end-to-end and 1+1 and POS protection and like bidirectional POS collaboration, we need the POS segment to identify the SR POS, especially in SR pairs network. So we propose a draft in spring to introduce that. And recently, this draft has been adopted as a IETF working group draft. And then we also propose a draft to introduce a POS segment in SRv6 network. So for allocating the POS segment, we suppose that the PSEP extensions in PSEP are needed, right? So we propose these two documents to describe the mechanism to allocate the POS segment and the use cases of bidirectional POS correlation. So the main updates of this document are we move the LSPP flag to PCE allocation flag, since we noticed that this flag can be used for multiple use cases such as binding seed allocation and POS seed allocation, something like that. So we changed the flag from a POS segment allocation flag to a PCE allocation flag. Also, this has been mentioned in PCE CC drafts already, so just update to sync up. And the second is we add some text to describe MSD consideration in the post segment allocation. So the rest are some minor changes such as reference, sync up, and some needs. So basically, we add a new co-author, Xiongquan from ZTE, to join this draft. And for implementation status, basically Huawei is implementing this in PCE and PCC products, and I suppose that ZTE would do the same thing as well. I suppose. And the update for this draft, we mentioned, we described how to, we propose a new association group to bind the SR paths to be bidirectional paths in SR networks. And this time we update the draft to adjust the comments from Marina and Chen Xiong, and then we fix the F bits in figure, which represent the direction of LSP from a PCC point of view instead of PCE point of view, and the others are some minor editorial changes. Also, we add Chen Xiong as a new co-author. And next plan, since the drafts are stable for a while, so we suppose that we are ready for working group adoption, because the commercial delivery are going on, and this mechanism are supported by the operators and vendors. So we could like to request the working group adoption, just like we did on the mailing list. And comments and contributions are very welcome. Thank you.
Question, Tariq from Juniper. So it's about the terminology, actually. SR path, LSP, and what is it? Third one. Yeah, candidate path, or maybe segment list. That's what I was looking for. Segment list. So could this be the segment list ID, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the LSP ID? Or is it what?
Basically, the path.
So maybe we just need terminology alignment.
Yeah. The path segment can be used for identify a seed list, or a candidate path, or an SR policy, as you want.
The way I understand it is the candidate path can be many segment lists.
Yes.
So how can you identify with one path ID many segment lists?
For example, there are two candidate paths within the SR policy, and then we use
one candidate path, many segment lists.
One candidate path.
Yeah.
Okay. So I suppose that you? Okay. Go ahead.
Rakesh from Cisco. So it depends on the use case, right?
Yep.
So path segment, depending on your use case, you can have it for the whole policy, or for the candidate path, or for the segment list. So it defines the concept, and how you allocate it. It's based on how you want to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, maybe expand on this in the draft so that it's well understood.
And I think the right place for that would be the Spring document, where this thing is defined.
Thank you. Thank you anyway. Any comment? That's it. Thank you.
Last time, when this was presented, I think John asked the question that we will progress this work once the Spring Working Group has adopted. So luckily that has happened. So I think this would also be a right time for us to see whether in the PC Working Group, whether we should adopt this work. Right? Yeah. So do you care for one of them that before other, or do you want both of them? What's your preference?
I suppose both of them. Both of them.
Would you like to expand on that?
Sorry?
Would you like to clarify why?
Because the path segment is the basic mechanism for allocating the path segment in PSAP, and this is the basic solution. And then the key use case for path segment is bidirectional path correlation, and those two drafts has been stable for a while, so I suppose that they can be, yeah.
Yes, so that sounds reasonable. So we've got these now on the wiki in our pending queue, and then we will move them to the more pending queue. So there are a few documents for adoption in the queue before them, but yeah, we should be rippling them up.
Okay, understand.
But working group, that does not prevent you from making comments now. You are allowed to read the drafts and talk about them.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. So that's all. Thank you.
Next we have Julian.
Shut off. Okay, so this is a summary of the latest change in the draft that has been presented a while ago. And it's actually merging two drafts, one which was focusing on the stateful interdomain PC on the chain basis and the BRPC-like approach, on the other one which was focusing on the hierarchical method. Both are addressing very similar problem space, interdomain in the stateful PC context. So we managed to merge both into a common document, and we believe that it clearly clarified the various approach that can be handled there. There have been some improvement also in the draft itself, various clarification, fixes, correction. Some more wording also on the behavior related to the various messaging in the interdomain context. And we believe that the text now is quite clear to be considered for further move. You're welcome to read it and share your reviews if you feel any interest. There was a major change in the section number 6 on the selection between RSVPT and segment routing types to enforce a local pair AS type in the chain. And we believe also this was a piece of key information which was part of the draft, and it's greatly improved now. We still believe that there is a hot topic behind this problem statement. There are some proposals that are trying to address some data center connections or other similar requirement that would fit, that would benefit from this solution. We see also some interest coming from the community when it comes to the combination, stitching, nesting, binding of several paths, type of paths or tunnels from a mix of SVPT or segment routing. We also noticed that there are some common grounds on the BGPLU proposal, even though it doesn't fully address our problem here. It's also a bit connected. And we felt that the full picture wasn't fully there, so we proposed to define a solution to the problem we're covering here in a full solution. I see someone queuing. You have a question for me?
It will wait till the end, thanks.
Okay. Pressure. A technical solution that has been included in the draft is one option. We believe it was reasonable enough because so far it doesn't extend the protocol at all. It just allocate or propose to allocate some new code points over existing registries, and those code points are triggering behavior that are defined properly in the draft. Of course, if the working group feels that this is a problem we want to work on, has a working group any other alternative option to specify the way to encode those is fully open. It is the solution that we consider reasonable for a first step. Others are possible, and hopefully, if we adopt, we will talk more about the details of adding maybe new TLVs or whatever. The idea here is to work on the problem, define how it behaves, and also work on the encoding, and don't consider that the proposed encoding there are the only way. Even though the good news is that we have an implementation using those encoding, and the other good news is that it's not a commercial implementation. So it will be updated according to any modification of the specified encoding if the draft becomes a working document. And if you're interested, there is a YouTube chain of YouTube content that you can click on to watch the demo from Olivier. So currently, the draft, as far as the author are concerned, is ready for working group adoption, or since it's the way the working group is working on, to join the queue for working group adoption. There is a technical solution to address the problem, knowing that it's not fixed. It's open to discussion for any further work. It's applicable to inter-domain LSP in a stateful context, knowing that we try to keep this pair autonomous system policy, naming that an AES can work using RSPT signaling while the neighbor one may use segment routing. It allows to combine both on a common service end-to-end with the two technologies. And there are some interesting use cases on the road. So we request to join the working group adoption queue. Question?
Hi, this is Adrian, proving that we need 3 working group chairs, so one can chair while one presents and one asks a question. I have 2 questions. Is there an assumption about the end domains and whether they are under the same administrative control or not?
There is no. On the contrary, the BRPC-based approach was built on the assumption that they are different, as opposed to the hierarchical one, who usually end up in a situation where you have a common entity controlling all the children. The BRPC-like approach doesn't assume any client-server or parental-child relationship. It's a flat BGP-like approach, like the autonomous systems over the internet.
Okay, good, thank you. And the second one was, are you aware that there's a document in BESS on, it's a bit suspiciously called Domain Gateway Discovery, but actually it's much more about how you get end-to-end connectivity, very similar to the picture that you've got on that slide, with the additional thing of finding out what the points of attachment are from those edge domains to the transport.
I'm not aware of this one, but sounds a lot for the pointer.
We definitely need to talk because that's approaching last call.
Okay, good to know. I talked to the best chair.
And a question for the chair. Has everybody in the room signed the blue sheets?
Ask away. We have one.
Any other question? Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last presentation is from Ron.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Zan from ZTE. The topic I want to talk is PCEP extends for BLTE. Yes, explain.
You have the clicker?
Oh, sorry.
The other way around.
Okay, sorry. Introduction. Yes, this document specifies extension to the path compute PCE. This document specifies extensions to the PCEP that allow a stateful PCE to compute and initiate the path for the BLTE. extensions. In our draft, we have defined four extensions. The first is beer capability advertisement. We define a new path setup type for beer and defined the beer TE PCE capability sub-TLV to extend beer capability. The second, we extend RP and SRP object defines a new path setup type for beer TE. The third is endpoints object. There are two options. The first is reuse the P2MP endpoints object body for IPv4 and IPv6, which defined in RFC 8306. And defined the other option is defined a new beer endpoint object to carry the BFR ID information. The last is extend ERO object. We define a new and beer ERO sub objects to carry adjacencies, bit strings, BSL, subdomain, and SI. Yes, this is the details of the extensions for beer capability advertisement. For extensions beer capability, yes, a new path setup type and the beer TE PCE capability sub-TLV are required. The format is below. And this is the RP SRP object. In order to set up and beer TE, a new path setup type TLV must be contained in RP SP object. Which means path is set up using beer TE. This is the endpoints object for specifying the beer information of the path for which a path computations is request. Endpoints object is required. There are two options. Reuse the P2MP endpoint object body for IPv4 and IPv6, which is defined in RFC 8306. Optionally, we defined a new beer endpoint object for BFID. The format is below. It contains leaf type, source BFID, and one or more destination BFIDs. Yes, the last is ERO object. For carrying beer TE explicit paths, a new beer ERO sub-object is required. It contains BSL, subdomain, SI, and adjacency bit strings. For BSL, the max length of the bit string is 5. It indicates the length of the bit string is 1024 because the ERO object which defined the length is limited to 8 bits. So we limited the max value of BSI to the 1020 bits in case the beer ERO sub-object is too long. Yes, next step. Comments were welcome, and we think the PCE CC should extend it for beer TE is needed, and the next work we would like to add this part. Welcome more people to enjoy our work for this. It may be another draft is okay. Yeah.
Any comments from anyone? I was in the beer working group where this document was also presented.
Yes.
And then I further talked to the beer chairs as well. I think beer chairs suggested that this work it should be done within the PC working group. So that's something that I need to further talk to my chairs as well and conclude. And second point also that came up was that there is the Yang work that is going on in the beer working group. So what they suggested, the beer chair suggested, since the beer Yang work could be the key reference for us when we develop the PC extensions, and most of the things that is there in the Yang can be used as a reference when we are developing the PCEP protocol, so that there is alignment between the Yang work as well as the PCEP extension. That's something that we might need to consider. I'm not 100% sure how to work that thing out, but that's something that we can take into consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Short comment. So, on itself, this work has lots to do with beer. It's exclusively for beer tea, and to avoid ambiguity, should specify number 2 Yang model for beer. It's not going to include beer tea, so the Yang model is going to be defined in future. And I agree, it should be fully aligned between these two.
Jeff, there is a tiny bit of confusion there. I also was confused by that point. So what has happened is that there is a beer Yang, there is a beer tea Yang, and then this document as presented is only for beer TE, but PCCC for beer could be for allocation of BFR IDs. That can include both beer and beer tea. So that's why there is a bit of a overlap happening there. But it needs to be clarified. Right now it's a bit confusing.
Yes.
Lou Berger, this is actually more of a comment for the beer working group, but since it keeps coming up, I feel like I have to say it. This is yet another case where we're having confusion over terms. So we went through this with Spring. Now we're going to go through it with beer. That we're really talking about beer policy and path steering, and that's what the terminology that we have in Spring, and we're providing the same function with beer here. We should be consistent in that terminology. And the nice thing is the person sitting to your right is Adrian, who's trying to duck, is actually helping us do an update on what TE means in the IETF. So this is going to be a great topic. I look forward to seeing his future document on the topic that will make it so we stop having the same conversation over and over again. So policy and path steering when we're not doing the resource allocation is at least what we're using in Spring and in TEAS.
三点章 ZTE. I just want to clarify question. The discussion just happened because beer TE can be used without beer, so it's separate two things. Yeah, believe me. So you can use PCECC to allocate BFR ID for beer, and also you can allocate agency ID for beer TE. Yes, it can be used in PCECC. But this document is the extension for BRT path steering. So it can be used to calculate the path in BRT, but not in beer. In beer, we needn't calculate the path. Yes. So that's the difference. Yeah.
The good thing is we are in agreement, but you don't know about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's funny to note that more people get involved when it comes to beer. Okay, I think we're done for today. Thank you everyone for attending the session. See you all in Montreal, hopefully.
Any last words?
Thank you, Pavan. Where's the other blue sheet, please?
We have one blue sheet. I was checking it. Good job. Yeah. Don't